Have you ever wondered who the last passenger on a midnight train really is? What if the person sitting alone at the end of the empty carriage had been dead for years? If you ever travel after midnight, don't ignore the last seat, because this story might be waiting for you. It was a cold Friday night when I missed the last bus home after working late. The only way back was an old midnight train that almost nobody used anymore. The station was silent. The lights flickered above the empty platform, and the wind pushed old newspapers across the tracks. When the train finally arrived, its brakes screamed like someone crying in pain. The doors opened slowly, but nobody stepped out. I walked inside and found only one passenger sitting at the far end of the carriage. He wore a long black coat and an old-fashioned hat that covered most of his face. He didn't move, didn't look at me, and didn't even seem to breathe. I sat several rows away, trying not to stare. As the train pulled away, every light inside the carriage flickered at the same time. My phone suddenly lost all signal. I looked outside the window, but instead of seeing houses or streets, there was only endless darkness. It felt like the train wasn't moving through the city anymore. Minutes passed in complete silence. Then I noticed something strange. Every time the train entered a tunnel, the man appeared one seat closer to me when the lights came back on. I told myself I was imagining it, but my heart began to race. At the next tunnel, I closed my eyes tightly. When the train came back into the light, I looked again. He had moved closer without making a single sound. I stood up and walked into the next carriage, hoping to get away from him. But when I opened the connecting door, I froze. The next carriage was completely empty except for the same man sitting at the far end again, waiting for me. I turned around in panic, but the door behind me had disappeared. There was no way back. My breathing became heavier with every step. I chose another seat, trying to stay calm. The train slowed down and stopped at another station, but when the doors opened, nobody entered. Outside the platform stood dozens of people wearing dark clothes. None of them moved. None of them blinked. They simply stared at me with empty eyes. Then all of them slowly raised one hand and pointed toward the man inside the train. The doors closed before I could react. The train started moving again. I could hear soft whispers filling the carriage. At first I couldn't understand the words, but they slowly became clearer. They all whispered the same sentence over and over. "Don't let him sit beside you." My hands began shaking. The lights flickered once more, and suddenly the man was sitting directly across from me. His face was still hidden beneath the hat. I wanted to run, but my legs refused to move. Then he slowly lifted his head. His skin was pale like ash. His eyes were completely black, and his mouth stretched into a smile that looked far too wide for a human face. In a calm voice, he asked, "Are you ready to take my place?" Before I could answer, the train entered the longest tunnel yet. Everything went completely dark. I felt an icy hand touch my shoulder. I screamed, but nobody heard me. When the lights returned, the man was gone. The train had reached my station. The doors opened as if nothing had happened. I stumbled outside and ran home without looking back. The next morning, I searched online for information about the midnight train. An old newspaper article caught my attention. 10 years earlier, the very same train had crashed inside a tunnel. Every passenger had died, except one man whose body was never found. The article included a faded photograph. My blood turned cold. It was the same man I had seen on the train. I tried to forget everything and convinced myself it had all been a nightmare. But every Friday night at exactly midnight, I hear the sound of train brakes outside my bedroom window, even though there are no train tracks anywhere near my house. Sometimes I wake up and find a ticket lying on my bedside table with only one sentence printed on it. Your seat is waiting. Last week I looked outside after hearing the familiar whistle. Standing across the empty street was the same man in the black coat. This time he wasn't smiling. He was simply pointing toward the darkness behind me. I was too afraid to turn around. If you ever board a midnight train and notice one silent passenger sitting alone at the end of the carriage, never sit near him. Never answer if he speaks, and whatever happens, don't let him offer you his seat, because someone always has to become the last passenger. If you enjoyed this horror story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for more terrifying stories every week. Sleep carefully, because some journeys never really end.